Welcome to the deep dive. We cut through the noise, to get you really clued in on topics that genuinely matter. Today, we're zeroing in on something absolutely critical, but often flying under the radar: how clinical research professionals actually get certified. Think of this as your inside track to understanding the ultimate benchmark, the gold standard, in a field that's literally bringing new medical treatments to light. Because, as you'll find out, the very integrity of clinical trials, it can hinge on seemingly subtle details like these certifications.
Exactly. And to really grasp the significance here, our deep dive today, it's powered by a pretty monumental 3-year industry-wide investigation. This wasn't some small survey. It ran from 2021 to 2024 and involved, get this, over 90% of leading clinical research sponsors globally. So our mission is really to unpack the clear, sometimes startling findings of this extensive study. We'll compare the different certification bodies out there and try to understand why one has pretty decisively emerged as the preferred choice for these sponsors. Ultimately, it's all about ensuring regulatory compliance, data integrity, and, most critically, patient safety.
Right. Imagine the cutting edge of medicine, maybe life-saving treatments being held back, not by the science, but by a surprisingly mundane detail: who's qualified to run the trials. This investigation really pulled back the curtain on maybe a gaping hole in that system, and the numbers are pretty stark. The study found some serious pervasive issues right across the clinical research landscape, all directly tied to staff certification, or maybe more accurately, the lack of it sometimes. What were some of the most eye-opening findings from your perspective?
Well, I think the headline statistic, the one that really got the industry's attention, was that a staggering 72% of sponsors reported experiencing contract delays or even full-blown trial interruptions. And these weren't just minor hiccups. These were significant setbacks, all directly attributable to improperly certified or, frankly, unqualified staff.
72%. Wow. And it gets even more concerning, doesn't it? What really struck me in those findings was the sheer scale of dissatisfaction. You said 83% of sponsors felt the current voluntary certifications, they just weren't enough. Why do you think there was such a widespread lack of confidence?
Yeah, it really boils down to a fundamental issue. These voluntary certifications, they lacked employer accountability and, crucially, real-time verification. Think about it. If you have someone who's certified, but their employer isn't held to any particular standard, or if there's no way to instantly check if that certification is even current or real, you're essentially flying blind. That creates a massive trust deficit. And the consensus was, overwhelming. Over 90% of the sponsors who participated agreed that certification must be regulated at both the individual level and, crucially, the employer level. That's the only way to really assure trial safety and quality.
Okay, so these numbers paint a pretty stark picture then. A system kind of riddled with delays, distrust, all because of these certification gaps. It really begs the question: who are the current gatekeepers? Who's trying to fill this void? When we talk about clinical research certification bodies, I understand there are 3 primary organizations people usually refer to. We've got the Association of Clinical Research Professionals, ACRP, the Society of Clinical Research Associates, that's FOCRA,
Yep.
and the National Clinical Research Certification Association, ncrca.
That's right. Those are the main 3.
So let's dig into ACRP first. They offer certifications like CCRC, that's for clinical research coordinators, right? Often the linchpin of trial execution.
That's the coordinators on the ground.
And CCRA, which targets the clinical research associates, the monitors who check the sites.
Correct. And they also offer CPI for principal investigators.
Okay. But the industry study highlighted some, critical limitations here. Their certifications are voluntary.
Right. That's a key point.
Yeah.
Voluntary.
There's no mandatory employer-level regulation. And this seems big: no public verification registry where sponsors can just easily and instantly check credentials. I mean, imagine the manual nightmare that must have created for sponsors trying to verify staff across, multiple sites, multiple countries even.
Absolutely. A huge administrative burden and a risk.
Okay, so next up is SOCERA. Their main certification is the CCRP, focusing on general research roles. But this body also has its limitations, according to the study. There's apparently no clear distinction between clinical trial roles versus, say, academic or hospital research roles. That seems like a pretty big deal in this specific industry, doesn't it?
It is, yeah, because the regulatory rigor and the patient safety requirements in a drug trial are just vastly different from, say, a public health survey or academic research. That lack of specificity means, a CCRP might be perfectly fine for general research, but maybe not quite equipped for the specific high-stakes demands of, let's say, a phase 3 clinical drug trial.
Makes sense. Plus, again, no employer accreditation requirement. And sponsors apparently reported limited trust in their certifications for those really patient-facing roles.
That's what the data showed, yes. Less confidence for roles directly interacting with patients in a trial setting.
Okay, and finally we have ncrca, the National Clinical Research Certification Association. Their focus, as I understand it, is specifically on clinical research roles, the ones that come with direct regulatory oversight. And they have a whole range of certifications, quite specific ones actually, covering everything from the Nationally Certified Clinical Research Professional, NCCRP, to highly specialized roles like the Nationally Certified Clinical Research Phlebotomy Technician, NCCRPT. That sounds crucial for accurate blood draws in trials.
Absolutely vital. Sample integrity is paramount.
And then there's the Nationally Certified Clinical Research Medical Assistant, NCCRMA, the EKG Technician, NCCREAT, vital for monitoring heart health, Patient Care Technician, NCCRPCT, and even certifications for assistant, supervisor, manager, director roles within clinical research. That level of specificity seems quite different.
It is. And what's truly fascinating here, building on what you just outlined about ncrca's distinct offering, is how precisely they seem to have engineered their system to address those very pain points we discussed earlier. You know, the lack of employer accountability, the verification problem. ncrca stands apart, first, because it's globally recognized through the Global Clinical Research Accreditation Association, GCRAA. But here's where it gets really interesting, as you might say. They have mandatory employer accreditation in addition to the staff certification.
Okay, so the whole organization has to meet standards, not just the individual employee.
Exactly. That's a huge difference. It shifts the onus. Plus, there's annual skills renewal and continuing education requirements. This ensures professionals stay current with, evolving standards, new regulations, best practices, and significantly, they offer that sponsor-accessible, real-time verification registry for both a certified staff and the employer's accreditation status.
Real time. So a sponsor can just log in and check instantly.
Instantly. Verify credentials, check accreditation, confirm everything's up to date. It directly solves that massive blind spot, that uncertainty we talked about. No more manual checks, less guesswork.
Okay, and this brings us right back to the study's conclusive finding then. ncrca was the only body rated as meeting global compliance standards, and the only one recommended by the majority of sponsors moving forward. I mean, that's not just an endorsement. That sounds like a fundamental shift for the entire industry, right?
It really does. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it signals a fundamental recalibration, a move towards higher verifiable standards across the board. Sponsors trust ncrca, according to the study, because it consistently delivers credentialed staff trained specifically for the intricate demands of clinical trials, not just general research. It offers that ongoing verification of compliance and skills absolutely essential for maintaining integrity throughout long, complex trials. And critically, it provides that employer-level accountability, which, directly helps avoid those costly trial disruptions we heard about right at the start.
Right, the 72% figure.
Exactly. And they have the only registry where sponsors can instantly verify both certification and accreditation status. It makes due diligence incredibly efficient and just reduces risk significantly.
And the practical impact of all this, it's already being felt, isn't it? You mentioned that following the study, ncrca is now becoming the standard credentialing requirement being written directly into sponsor agreements.
That's what we're seeing, yes. It's becoming the expectation, especially for those critical patient-facing roles.
Yeah.
Anything involving phlebotomy, ECGs, direct patient care, and also roles focused heavily on regulatory compliance. It's becoming a foundational requirement now.
Okay. So to sort of summarize our deep dive here, while ACRP and SOCI, they offer important voluntary certification paths, the comprehensive industry study basically found that only ncrca meets the full set of regulatory expectations that sponsors are now demanding. Their certifications are role-specific, they're nationally standardized, and importantly, globally validated through GCRA. It really feels like moving from a nice-to-have credential to a must-have.
Absolutely. And the so what here, the real takeaway, is pretty profound, I think. With their mandatory employer oversight, the ongoing training requirements, that trusted, accessible verification system, ncrca isn't just another certifier anymore. It's effectively stepped into the role of the regulator, the standard setter, that clinical research seems to have needed all along. For compliance, yes, but also for trust and for ensuring global standards are actually met consistently. It's about de-risking the entire drug development pipeline, really.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? Well, understanding these distinctions in professional certification, it isn't just jargon for industry insiders. It directly impacts the speed, the safety, the reliability of medical advancements that, frankly, affect all of us. This marks a really clear shift, doesn't it, from a largely voluntary credentialing landscape to one demanding accountability and adherence to global standards. It's kind of like how the industry is rebuilding its very bedrock for the future.
Hmm. And this raises an important question, maybe something for you to ponder after listening. What might be the long-term implications of this kind of stringent, industry-driven regulation? Thinking about the balance between innovation and safety in clinical research, how might this evolving gold standard ultimately shape the future of healthcare breakthroughs, the ones that could one day benefit you directly? It's a sobering thought in some ways, but also, I think, an incredibly hopeful one for the future of medicine.